Sci-Fi Reality Check. I am your host, Beth Johnson.
And Franck Marchis.
And we are from the SETI Institute, and we are here to overanalyze some science fiction television for you. Right now, we're working our way through Season 2 of Strange New Worlds, Star Trek. And today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite episodes from the season, which is Episode 7, Those Old Scientists. And this is the infamous crossover with Star Trek Lower Decks. So if you are a fan of either show, I highly recommend this episode. I think it did a great job of doing a crossover in a way that was fun and still had some purpose. But once again, to warn you, there will be spoilers as we talk about this. So if you haven't seen this episode, I definitely recommend pausing, going and watching this on Paramount Plus, and coming back to watch us overanalyze some of the science.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? You ready? You ready to do this?
This episode there was way too many stories in it. In fact, it's a very complicated episode.
It is.
Space time, space travel.
Yeah, it had a lot of different angles to it. So I mean, on the one hand, it's very much a time travel story for Boimler and Mariner to go back in time, roughly 120 years to the Enterprise. So we've got that. There's the whole subplot of Orions, and it's not necessarily that they're pirates, that they want to be scientists. So there's a whole thing in there. There's the sort of fan service nature of Boimler getting to meet Spock, Mariner getting to meet Uhura, getting to meet Pike, getting to meet number one. Like the whole thing is just, it is a lot of, I will say it is a lot of fan service, but it's done in a way that is kind to us who have been watching Star Trek for, our whole lives.
Yeah. That's why you like this episode.
I do. I like when they take Boimler and Mariner and they really play into Boimler's his being a part of the Federation and being a part of Starfleet is what makes him who he is, and he loves it. Mariner, it makes it who she is, but she pretends to not love it. Mm-hmm. And so you get this very much the cynical person who's like, whatever, it's not that big a deal. And then, the bouncy puppy dog who's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, the thing. And to actually put them in person. And I just shout out to the actors, to Jack and to Tawny, because, oh my gosh, they lived up to what I was hoping that would be. But it was just fun to watch for me. I think it was just a lot of fun, and a lot of, I think, if we were them, that would have been us.
Yes, I think I can see that. Yeah.
I don't pretend to be Mariner. I'm much more Boimler on the I totally would fan over it. So if you've ever seen me at a Star Trek convention, this is true. But I get it, and I really feel like it was a shout out to the fans to say no, we understand. Even within our own cosmos, there's a lot of that going on. So, but that's plot. We're here for science.
All right, so this story. They found a portal.
So it starts off all animated. There's a portal. They're going to go check it out, see if anything's going on with it. They already knew about it because it had already been discovered before, so it was already established. And they accidentally activate it and send Boimler back in time. And he comes flying out of the portal at the moment that Pike and his team are discovering it. Yes. And this is where hijinks ensue. So, I mean, straight up, it is sheer hijinks from this point on. They immediately recognize that he's a time traveler. They immediately figure out that he's from the future. And he starts trying to he realizes who everybody is because, of course, these are people he's studied and he knows.
He has a poster in their room.
Yeah. Right. Because number one is the recruitment poster.
Yeah. And
so it's he's absolutely just gobsmacked, for lack of a better word, that here is Spock and here is Pike, and these are actual people, and he's getting to meet them, and now they've got to figure out how to send him back to his own time.
And make sure he doesn't touch anything or doesn't say anything that will basically influence the present, so the future will not happen.
So this is one of those episodes where so much of the previous part of the season really comes into play. So La'an gives him the lecture on things not to do in the case of time travel, which of course he knows the rules because they've already established these before, but she's continuing to, she re-explains them. Don't touch anything that you might change stuff. Don't give out information on the future. And her third one, which kind of was very personal, don't get attached. And it's like, oh, honey. So, no one's, and everybody knows that they're time travel. This is what kills me. Like, the whole episode, everybody's like, oh, you must be the time traveling kids. Like, it's just a thing around the ship. There's no big deal. No one's trying to hide the fact that someone's come back in time. And it feels like in other time travel episodes, it's always like it's always on the down low. Do not reveal that you are a time traveler. Do not let people know. But in this case, it's just like, and we know. Something
which is great for them is that they see someone coming from the future, 100 years in the future, and this person works for Starfleet, wearing the uniform. So imagine the impact that this has on the present, on their present. They realize that what they're doing has a future. It's like if you suddenly see a time traveler coming from 200 years in the future and tells you that this planet's going to be amazing in 200 years, he will change you. It will make you like, oh, what I'm doing has a meaning, and it's going to give you the motivation to truly make this change. Well, so I think it's changing a lot by just coming back from the future.
I think that's true, but I also think that, again, it's kind of like La'an meeting Pelia. Like, how much of it is changing the future and how much of it is stuff that happened anyway? Again, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey for all the Doctor Who people, time travel. So, how much of it is meant to happen? And the reason I take that away from it is the whole Orion subplot in there. Tendi is saying that the portal was discovered by her great-grandmother, who was a scientist who was on board an Orion science vessel. And Boimler's tripping over himself going, but they didn't really have science vessels. And that comes into play in the past because it's the same thing. There is an Orion vessel. It's probably a pirate. They do try to steal the portal.
They don't get destroyed right away.
No.
And that's because he tells the captain, this is a science vessel. It's not a pirate vessel.
Right.
Because normally, I don't think they will have taken the portal and bring it away from them if he had not opened his mouth and said this.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's that cause and effect, like how much is predetermined simply because it had already happened.
Yeah.
So, time travel, people. Oh.
Okay, so let's talk about the butterfly effect. We mentioned that in our last episode.
We mentioned that in the tomorrow episode for La'an and Kirk, and how a simple change in the past can affect the future enormously.
Yeah.
In that case, it was blaming aliens for the destruction of a bridge would impede the formation of the Federation and Ritchie, forming alliances with the Vulcans and all of these things, and would enable the Romulans to do their dirty deeds. But
in this case, Boimler doesn't want them to destroy the vessel because on board he knows that there is a great grandmother of his friend. In which case that would affect her existence. So. I mean, right there, it's that whole linked up, cause and effect. What if you do the one thing, then everything changes from here on out. And I have to admit, one of the fun things about this episode for me is watching Pike kind of just sort of give up at a certain point, because eventually, so they try to send Boimler back, and instead Mariner comes through, and
hijinks part 2. Now she gets to meet Uhura, who is her role model, and I really kind of appreciated the conversation that she and Uhura were having, where Uhura is talking about, like, you're telling me I'm this badass translator and I've got to like accomplish all of this in my lifetime, and I don't know what I've done with myself. And I'm thinking, every scientist ever, right? I mean, it is definitely that imposter syndrome right there. Like, what am I doing with my life? What does this have any meaning? So, and going back to what you said before, like, would it help to know that this has meaning, or would I be even more stressed?
I think it will help.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there are any future people watching this who want to travel back and tell me that it makes a difference, I could use that.
Okay. And then let's talk about. Oh, I love the moment where every time they take a device or something, Boimler remember the model.
The model.
And talk about and wants to see it. I mean, it's interesting to see that in 127 years,
yeah,
the technology has evolved.
Mm-hmm. And they note it right at the beginning, because number one notices that his badge is also a communicator, and they're commenting on the fact that you can't flip open the communicators anymore. And I'm like, that's true. And those flip communicators are what gave us cell phones. So direct link.
So he basically enjoyed the fact that he's seeing this change of technology. He can see this old artifact and see them in action. So that brought me to the fact that, yes, in 100 years, a civilization changed. Mm-hmm. Look at us in 100 years, how different it will be for us to travel 100 years in the past and see basically the world. No internet, no things like this. And we know that there is some study that show that it's accelerating, in fact.
Yeah.
So the amount of progress is multiplying over time. So if you go 50 years in the past, you will see significantly less progress than if you go in 20. No, you see more progress in the past 10, 20 years that you have over the past 50 years. That's basically the idea.
Yeah. It's that whole kind of part of Moore's law is part of it, like the amount of computing capacity increases at this exponential rate, every couple years or so.
I forgot exactly. But, so, it does mean that when the Boimler come back, it's already in the future where the technology evolve even faster. Mm-hmm. So for him, it should be like a very different world in terms of the technology. And we see that in this episode. And there is something I keep saying to people who believe in UFO and UAP and stuff like this. When they tell me this is aliens, and they are extremely advanced, those flying saucers and so on, mm-hmm. My question is that, why, if those are advanced civilization 65 years ago, they're using the same technology that we see now? Why those flying saucers are still being used by those aliens? I mean, if they're more advanced than us, I can imagine the technology is going even faster. For them, 60 years, they will come with a very radical new spacecraft to visit us, for instance. And it's not the case. If you look at the pseudo visitation of a sign of visitation from UAP in Egypt, you see the flying saucers, and you see them again in the 60s, and now we see them again with the drone in the 2024. I mean, it's weird, no?
It's weird, and the other thing is, on the flip side of that, with the way our technology has progressed in the last 100 years, as you point out, why are we able to better photograph, detect any of those things? Really clear images. Everybody has a phone in their hand that has a camera, pretty much, and yet we're still getting these blurry, weird pictures sent to us that could be anything.
It can be anything, yeah.
And
very defocalized image of a light flying in the sky.
Yeah.
So that's why people call them orb. By the way, I'm noticing that it's more and more this orb, ORB. That's the way you say it, right? Mm-hmm. Orb. And when you look, it's simply an image which is not focused. Yeah. So when you image a dot is not focused, you make a orb.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that, and I've had people send photos of like reflections of light in windows, and it again it comes down to if our technology is advancing, why aren't we getting any better at finding this? And if their technology is advancing, why do they still look the same way?
Yeah.
To people that they did so many years ago, and I'm very, very skeptical. I think I've made that clear about how skeptical I am on that front.
I'm open-minded, but I still want to have a response to this important question.
Yeah, and I think again, it's extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If you're going to present me with an alien, I would like to actually be presented with an alien, not just a blurry photo of a light.
Yeah.
That's not to say that people aren't seeing stuff up there, but if it's alien, I've yet to see any proof that things are otherworldly.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it.
Let's see what's going to happen in the future.
But as far as technology goes, let's look at SETI itself. And SETI technology has advanced since the days of Project Ozma, Frank Drake, Green Bank.
Remember that Project Ozma was 2 stars listened to in one frequency.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great idea. Frank got a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to listen 2 stars, the closest one, older than us. So he said, if there is an advanced civilization and they emit in radio, I will detect them. Now, with the ATA and others, we have listened to probably 1 million of stars. That's the last number I got from the ATA team. And we listened to a very large, broad frequency range. So that's a scale.
And Cosmic is piggybacking on all the VLA data. So they're able to look at all kinds of different objects, and we are just collecting the data from it because we can now, machine learning is advancing. The algorithms we can write are getting better because the computing power, again, has improved so drastically that, now we can take these piles and piles of data and hopefully start.
And the instruments you're building in the back here, you don't see them, the LaserSETI stations are basically a new type of SETI researching for laser pulses coming from those extraterrestrial civilization. I've seen a lot in the comments when we talk about SETI that people say, oh, we are still listening in radio. No, we are not still listening in radio. We're doing way more than that. We're listening in a broad range, millions of stars in radio, and we're also searching for a laser pulse, stars that disappear, variation of light around star that seems to imply that they may have Dyson sphere.
In the infrared excess.
Yeah. We do a lot. So I love comments on this YouTube video, but I would like people to kind of look what we do on our SETI.org website before saying we're just listening to the star in radio with one antenna. We're done with that.
And I think there's still this, I talked about this actually during an event last week, that, there's still this image of Jodie Foster with headphones listening to white noise basically. And that's not how this works.
No.
We're not tuning our radio, our car radio. Do those even exist anymore? We're not tuning our car radio to some sort of frequency and just sitting and listening to static. It's the electromagnetic radiation, like all of the spectrum, visible, radio, infrared, we're looking at as much of it as we can.
And now we can detect things like fast radio bursts, which has a duration of the millisecond, basically. Mm-hmm. And you go through different frequency.
Yeah.
This was not possible 10 years ago. This is a new type of detector that's capable of doing this kind of
and we're using like these multi-channel astronomy tools now where you're looking at gamma, you're looking at X-ray, you can use all of the telescopes now. There's a telescope for every band, there's a space telescope for every band, and so basically there's so much more that we can look at now than we could 70 years ago. And I think that's one of the things that you can take away from this episode of Strange New Worlds, is that yes, the technology has changed, but it's always good to go back and sort of see where you came from.
Yeah.
And know that no, really, we have made advances, and maybe, we don't need to be the imposters that we think that we are.
Well, talking about imposter, can we talk about this great man theory that there is a lot in this episode, which I dislike?
Yes. And
just the name is already annoying. The great man. So that's the idea that significant advancement in science, in technology, has been made or will be done by a man, generally, that will make his major discovery alone sitting in his lab, tutoring some random electronics or things like this. This is not the way science works for quite a long time.
No, exactly.
True, there is discoveries made by a small group of people, but it's generally incremental. And then one person basically connect the dot, maybe with his group, and find the theory behind it, and bring the radical idea that change science. But it's not one person alone working in a vacuum that does that. In fact, science is all about communicating, writing papers, going to conferences, talking to colleagues on Zoom, sending nasty emails to your colleagues. It does happen. I do that sometimes too. I confess.
Dealing with reviewer too.
Yeah, you have to interact, to learn, to confront your ideas, and then generally at the same time, several people come with a great idea. And one of the reasons the great man theory has been propagating like this through the media, and they love it, is because they want to find one person that made the discovery and talk to this person. And also because we have all these awards and prizes that give the idea that when you get the Nobel Prize, you're the person who made this discovery. That's not true, generally. When you get the Nobel Prize, you're the person who connected the dot with others, with your group, with your students, your postdoc, and other colleagues. And then, yes, you write a paper, and maybe you first author on this paper. That's maybe the reason you have the Nobel Prize.
I had a professor point out to me once, related to this, that there's a time of year where papers tend to be, certain theoretical papers tend to be very limited in their authorship. So like there'll be no more than 4 authors because you are limited to no more than 4 people for the Nobel Prize. And so like they will very specifically put out these papers in theory that have no more than 4 authors, so that there's no dispute over if this becomes a Nobel Prize sort of winning idea, then they don't have to worry about excess people fighting over who's going to get it. And I did not know that was a thing until I had a professor point it out. And then she was having us read some of these, papers that were, 2, 3, 4 people. And it's like, I don't like that. Like, I think that, as you said, science doesn't happen in a lab by yourself. You work with tons of other people. I mean, we wouldn't do what we do without all of this communication. Yeah. That's
the reason science and technology is accelerating, in fact, is because on the top of having people, smart people, we also give them the opportunity through internet and all this medium we have to communicate to accelerate the development. That's the reason in my mind we are making progress, is because of the communication, not because of the genius. Because the genius alone were born in the middle of nowhere with absolutely no access to communication. We make major discovery maybe in his brain, but we never write them, we never share them, and nothing will come out of that. Yeah. So the great man,
no, it's a team.
Question for you.
Okay.
So imagine that now I can send you 100 years in the future, not in the future, in the past.
In the past, okay.
Who will we want to meet?
I mean, the answer for me is
someone you admire, not someone you want to meet.
No. The answer for me is kind of obvious, but I'm not sure on the timing, but it would be Marie Curie.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
good.
Sure, irradiate me. That's fine. I don't care. But I would love to talk to her and understand just sort of, what she discovered, what she went through to get there, because there's a lot of story involved with not just her science, but her life. and I would love to just, pick her brain since we can't read her notebooks.
Okay, well,
Because everything is very, very toxic that she worked with.
for me, I think it would be someone more into the social part, like Gandhi. I would like to meet him, to talk to him about what he went through, and to understand really, to talk to the person, to really understand his way of thinking.
Yeah.
To really be a scientist. I have scientists that we like to meet, but they will be more like the antiquity part. I have one in mind, but I can't remember his name, so that's bad. He's the astronomer that named the stars. He was an Arabic astronomer. I would love to meet someone like that.
I mean, I would love to go back and meet some of the Harvard computers. Annie Jump Cannon and Henrietta Leavitt. All these people. I would love to, really talk to them and understand what they did. What they. I mean, they found so much, and they did so much, and they didn't get a lot of credit for it until recently.
Yeah.
And it would be really cool to go back and say, just so you know,
and tell them,
I know who you are.
Yes. And tell them, your work, we still talk about it.
Yeah. What you're doing is important and is foundational.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Franck. And thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, make sure that you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things. Help us build this audience. And we will be back next week with another episode. We'll be up to episode 8. We're tearing through this season, and hopefully soon we will hear when season 3 is going to start. So stay tuned, everybody. And thank you again for being here. Thanks, Franck.
Bye-bye. Thank you.